Grand Rising Life Force, and welcome to Speak Pro Radio. My name is Stefan Rao, more commonly known as Tank, and today we're going to talk about what might be the most significant event in human history and the latest world situation report, along with some of the dead presidents or presidents that may have been dead. So we're going to get started on that today because there's some pretty exciting things that just came out in the latest world situation report on UnitedNetwork.Earth. And we just think it's responsible to repeat these things because not enough people are actually talking about the real facts. So we're going to start by talking about the latest portion of the world situation report, which basically Kim Gogan brought, she took a video clip of Alex Jones. Now, if you're not familiar with Alex Jones, he's probably the world's most well-known truther, right? He's made a multi-million-dollar living out of his show. He's been banned from everything, which kind of goes along with the narrative. But he's also very much been in the know on things for a long time. He actually interviewed Dr. Rima, who I interviewed myself several years after the fact, but he interviewed her all the way back in like 2012, right? And Dr. Rima was the source, the first person to really talk about how she had a patient and her patient was royalty. And Dr. Rima is a very high level physician I'm not sure, a holistic physician. Hello, Laura. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? That was not meant to happen. Sorry, Mr. I'll continue. You were actually talking.
Right. So I was talking about Alex Jones. He was the first person to ever interview Dr. Rima. And Dr. Rima is, she's some type of holistic practitioner, but she's very famous, right? And she was treating this royal, who she doesn't name, right? But while she was treating this royal individual, which kind of struck me as the queen or something like the queen, she said that the queen or this royal individual said, it's about time for the great culling, right? Now, if you're not familiar with the word culling,
No.
and just in the context, the culling would be like basically the extermination, right? And what she said, this is where the term comes from, is that it's time to get rid of the useless eaters. And basically what she was saying is all of the rest of us were the useless eaters. And this royal individual was part of the elite echelon of reptilian fantasies and horrifying nightmares, right? And that made her somehow better than the rest of us. And we were just the useless eaters. Now, this term useless eaters has become very common. It's repeated often by different groups, right? And Alex Jones kind of made it more famous, right? Because this is how the global elite, the dragon families, the eagles, the Order of the Black Sun, all these different groups basically see humanity, right? Now, it's important to understand that's how they see us, the useless eaters, or oftentimes, as is reported from the United Nations, I forget which big event it was, but I believe it was Winston Churchill, who basically talked about humanity as the cancer to the planet, right? That it's really our fault that everything is the way it is. And if you look around you, most of us have embraced that idea, believe it or not. Like this is something that has been perpetuated through the media for decades, right? So we end up having this kind of self-hatred for the state of the union for the planet, right? Because we use plastic, or because we drive a car, or because we're using too much power, or all these different things. But what's never talked about is, well, who are the people that invented and created these things, have bottled water? I mean, we used to be able to just get water off the tap and it'd be perfectly fine, right? But because they put poisons like fluoride that shorten your telomeres and do all types of damage to your body. Fluoride is toxic. They put that right in your water, along with a whole bunch of other poisons that they put in the water. We can't just drink tap water anymore. Everyone has to drink some kind of filtered bottled water, right? And you can't even really filter out fluoride for the most part. So you definitely need something to just maintain optimal health or even regular health, to be honest. So that's one thing. Now that comes from them, right? They're the ones that perpetuate. They actually bragged about this, how they were going to sell their water to us, right? Mocking us, because the next thing would be they'd sell us air, right? because they blame us for making the air toxic, right? So this is very common for the global elite to poison our food, our water, our air, our minds, and then blame us for it, for the state of the world, right? And basically this is very common, but this is how at least my theory on this is kind of how they justify why there needs to be a global extermination, right? Now Alex Jones has been talking about this before anybody else really made it kind of the mainstream truther, like kind of mainstream alternative media, and he's had some pretty intense moments where he kind of blew up at the world, yelling at everyone, telling them what they're planning to do, right? And he's been accurate. Actually, he's been very accurate in the things he said. Now, Kim Gogan talks about this, and she basically says, well, part of the reason why he's accurate is because he has so many direct communications with intelligence agencies. So he's in the know and part of things. Matter of fact, I believe now. I don't want to speak ill out of school, but I remember someone telling me that he was part of the SES, that he was actually on the payroll. I can't prove that, so take that with a grain of salt. In my experience, Alex Jones is, I mean, he's kind of set a tone for everybody else. I mean, the quality of the production. Now, in quality of production and the actual integrity, well, I don't say the integrity, but the accuracy of their information has been so far ahead of everybody else. It really has. And I know this. I've had some experience with this myself, where when I had really good sources on the inside, right, and I thought I was putting out an urgent message, which basically they used me to put out a message of fear, right, and false hope. And as long as I put out their message, right, I relied on my military sources and treasury sources, intelligence sources. As long as I relied on them for the message, they were very happy to let me thrive, right? We'd put out a conference call that would end up being, translated into 14 languages and transcribed. It'd go out to 2 million people, right? So there was a time where I can appreciate what it's like to get bad information and think that it's right and it's solid and you're doing something good by putting it out. Unfortunately, I realized one day, well, hey, I'm part of the problem, right? I'm perpetuating fear like everybody else. And this is kind of if they get in your mind frame and they get in the way you think, they start to convince you that fear is what you need to talk about. You need to make people afraid. This is a terrifying time. They're going to do this. They're going to do this. And that's what Alex Jones still does. And it's, I agree with Kim Gogan that he's probably directly involved, with different groups in intelligence and I don't know if he's on the payroll for anybody, but the things he puts out, they're pretty spot on, and they're spot on to the point of where he's actually being involved with what the operatives are planning to do. So we were talking about this earlier about kind of what they do, right? That they got to tell you what they're going to do. So they put it in movies and all types of things like that, right? Now you're familiar with things like that, right?
Yeah. Like I've seen a few things and I'm like, oh, that's something quite interesting. Like I remember them telling me this, but then telling me it's not happened. Don't worry, you'll be okay. Because seeing a bit, shocking. But then I started watching TV and I was just like, my Lord, they put everything out here. And we were talking about this. I happened to just go down the path because of my work. And just the experiences that I had, not because I was like a conspiracy head or anything like that. Like, for me, when I went down this, I guess, rabbit hole, and even then I've just touched a little bit of it, I was a little bit shocked. I'm like, holy moly. They put everything out.
So
yeah.
Now, and you do have some experiences, you're very friendly with Ricardo Vassi. He's vouched for you before, and he's someone who offered you a job. And also, you were volunteering for hours, right? Is that what it's called?
Hours.
OURS.
Yeah.
Right. So, anybody not familiar, hours is go ahead.
No, let's go. I'd love for you to give a background.
So, Hours is famous for the is it The Sound of Freedom? Is their movie that came out?
Yeah.
And Right. And it's supposed to be about how they would set up these operations and basically infiltrate and stop human trafficking. They'd go and rescue, these kids, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Now,
So at
what?
the time, well, because the thing was, once I went down with, like we explained before, like there was a few things just was not adding up. And I was like, oh, I don't like this. I then like investigating a little bit, just a little bit, because at that time I kept hearing about.
Did you keep hearing a dog bark?
Sorry.
It was like a nightmare, right? It's like, do you keep hearing a dog bark? Where are we? What is this happening? It's the weirdest thing.
Sorry, guys. Anyways, so I'm gonna try to.
Okay. So ours is a group that claims to be fighting human trafficking. However, one of the things that happened, at least in Haiti, in one of the accounts with ours, right, is they went in, they rescued all these kids, they turned them back over to basically whatever the Haitian version of, or maybe it was Dominican Republic, whatever the group, the Child Protective Services was there. 2 weeks later, these alleged rescued kids were put back out on the streets. So were they really rescued? Were they just, part of a video, because they would videotape everything, their big stings, and then they'd put them right back out. So what good did it do? I mean, did they really help those kids at all outside of giving them kind of a 2 week reprieve from being prostituted and in trafficked? I mean, yes, that's good without a question, but I mean, the reality is, did it fix the problem? No. And is it fixing the problem? Certainly not. And even that movie Hours, we've been meaning to talk about this for a long time because I have talked to Max Lowen about this quite a bit because the movie basically makes it seem like, okay, that Homeland Security is the good guys, right? So this guy in Homeland Security, he saw a problem and he went to face it, right? And basically he follows these scurvy, dirty looking little pedophile guys, right? Like the way you would imagine a pedophile would look, someone attracted to kids, right? The way that's what they bust. That's how they start by busting. They break up these groups. Now, the problem is these groups, they're a part of the problem, but they're certainly not the real problem. They're not the main issue with trafficking, right? Because trafficking kids is happening for many reasons, one of them being the production of adrenochrome, right? Which is where they're torturing a child to have them activate their fight or flight and the adrenaline to go through their body into their blood. And then they drain the blood off because it becomes a drug mixed with adrenaline and blood, which is adrenochrome, which I guess is supposed to make you feel and look younger. It's like crack on crack. I mean, but it's supposed to be amazing for you. But once you take it one time, you have to stay on it forever, right? So basically, they dedicated their life to they're going to torture and kill, murder kids for the rest of their life and get this drug from it. Now, that's the bigger problem. That's a much bigger industry than the creepy pedophiles, right? So ours is basically they glamorize this rescue to go after this one child who's taken by, one of the, I don't know if it's a cartel or military group in Colombia, and they track him down and rescue the child, right? And this version of things, does that happen? I'm sure. I'm sure that there's, military groups, mercenary groups out there that live in the backwoods and they snatch kids and rape and molest and torture them. I'm sure that does happen for sure. So I don't want to negate that's a real problem. However, the global issue is much bigger. In fact, the issue would be like things like kids coming across the border, right? With one adult and 14 kids. Those kids are being trafficked, sold, their organs being harvested, things like that. That's the bigger problem than just the creepy pedophile. Now, creepy pedophile is still bad, but at the end of the day, there's a much bigger problem here that need to be addressed, which ours did not do. In fact, what it did was it successfully distracted people into thinking, oh, this is an isolated problem that doesn't affect me, right? It's something that happens in these weird situations down in Mexico and Honduras and Guatemala, right? But it doesn't really affect me. And that's kind of what the problem is that we think these things are someone else's issues, right? So That being said, that's why Alex Jones was so fascinating, right? Because Alex Jones brought these things to your living room talking about absolutely crazy, insane things. They were so hard to wrap your mind around that when he did it, he was so far ahead of everybody else. This is where you get your silence is your consent. Okay. Now, are you familiar with that term?
I've heard it before, but would love a little bit more of an explanation because you were explaining about. I don't want to Can you explain it to me, please?
Sure. So, so I think this actually originates with like Plato, right? So if
Mm-hmm.
you are silent about an injustice, then you are essentially condoning it, right? So I'll give an example. I believe it actually has to do with Jeffrey Dahmer, who's a notorious serial killer. And there's this event that took place, I think it was in the 80s, but it was in definitely New York City in the Village, right? And so this man is running down the street, buck naked, covered in blood, screaming in the Village, right? And behind him is his assailant, Jeffrey Dahmer, who's
Mm-hmm.
chasing him down the street to literally kill, torture, and eat him, right? And as he's running down the street from Jeffrey Dahmer, there's it's the East Village. There's people everywhere. You can't avoid people, and not only that, but it's there's like brownstones in different places right on the street, and people just kind of close their blinds, right? They
Mm-hmm.
just kind of that's not my problem, right? Or they thought it was a lovers' quarrel, right? They thought it was a lovers' quarrel, so they shut the windows. Those are real reports, by the way. That actually happened. So, anyways, this man ended up becoming some a victim of Jeffrey Dahmer. I mean, he was already a victim, but he became a full on victim, right? And was taken back and killed and cut into pieces and eaten by Jeffrey Dahmer, right? Now, that's the kind of thing where it would have taken very little to intervene to help, right? But because everyone was kind of silent and they did nothing about it, ultimately they condoned it, and Jeffrey Dahmer went on to kill many more people, right? So this is the type of thing where your silence is your consent. You allowed something to happen and did nothing about it. And because you did nothing about it, you have now consented, so to speak, to the universe that it's okay. This is why the whole movement against various imposed medical treatments, along with many of the things they're trying to impose in schools, why it is important. It does play a role for parents and others to stand up and say no, right? You cannot let it happen. It's not okay. And it's okay to speak up about it. Now, has it changed anything? Not exactly. You still have a lot of this going on. Has it changed it in some places? Yes. Some places have been very successful, to get rid of forced medications and to get rid of certain practices like teaching certain things about sex at a very young age to kids in like kindergarten, right? Taking away the parental rights of kids as young as 8 years old when they go to see the doctor. Yeah. What do you chime in on that? Maybe later. You're talking. I see your lips moving, but
Can you hear me
where's your volume?
now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, there we go. So, continue, Mr. Al.
Okay, so basically, this is the kind of thing where your silence is your consent. So, what the deep state, the cabal, the Illuminati, the order has done for many, many, probably thousands of years is they have presented something to us, right? Especially with the media. They tell us everything they're going to do, and then we just think it's entertainment, right? We don't
Mm.
consider it a message or a warning or, in a sense, an energetic contract that we're agreeing to, right? Go ahead.
Didn't you say this was part of the Draco law? I don't know if I said that correctly.
Yeah,
Okay.
under draconian law, your silence is your consent, right?
Mhm.
So they often will put things in contracts, for example, that
Mhm.
we'll sign, right? Like you ever get one of those contracts and it's like, it's so long and it's on your phone and it's like, okay, just check this box if you agree with everything in this contract, but chances are pretty good you probably didn't read the whole contract, right?
Mm.
That's kind of a tactic, a lawyer tactic, right? To kind of slip things in there, right? To where they can get you to agree to all types of things.
And and with what everything that Kim has been doing, does that kind of like cancel it? Just a thought, or a question.
I think it does cancel it. I actually we rewrote some documents years ago, and I was part of that with Kim. And this was brought up by somebody specifically to put it in these contracts to make sure it's clear that our silence is not our consent. And in fact, in contract law, if there's any part of the law or any part of the contract that you did not understand, then you are not obligated or bound by it. Just FYI, that's something a lot of people don't know. So if there's something in the contract you did not comprehend, you are not bound by it. If it was not clear in terms you understood, for example, if they put all of a sudden something in a different language, which is kind of what legalese is, right? That wouldn't be fair, right? If all of a sudden half the contract was written in, Chinese, it's like, wait, I don't know what that says, right? Now,
Mm-hmm.
but they got you to sign it because you missed that part, right? That's not actually contractually or legally binding, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can fight that in a court of law with any contract, actually, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that is what they've done to us. They've got us to sign off on things which are not lawful. They're not in our best interest, or they had a completely different agenda. It reminds me of, you ever watch a show, with like a genie in it, right? And if you don't ask the question just right to the genie will give you some jacked up version of what you really wanted, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
you'd be like, I wish for all the money in the world. And now you have all the money in the world, but you can't spend it because you wished for all the money in the world. So every time you go to spend it, it comes back to you. Right? Like that's the kind of trickery that the genies are based on the jinn,
Mm-hmm.
right? These demons, they'll give you what you want, but not the way you want it, right? So that's kind of a tactic used, I guess, by the Draconian, the Abrasics, the Anunnaki, Marduk, reptilians, the dark aliens, because there's good aliens or good other extraterrestrial beings, and there's bad ones too, right? So this, when we're talking about this, we're talking about the bad ones, but we know a lot of good ones, so we don't want to just chalk that up, right? Most of the multiverse is peaceful and loving and kind, right? It's not like that, and they want what's best for us, and likewise us for them, right? But anyways, I digress. So let's go back to kind of where Kim was talking, right? So Kim brings on Alex Jones. Alex Jones starts talking about and diving in on where's Joe Biden, right? Because I guess Joe Biden hasn't been seen in 5 days or 6 days at the time of the broadcast, right? And
Yeah.
Joe Biden has been on life support underneath the White House for most of his presidency.
Mm-hmm.
That's first, right? Now, is he alive or dead? He doesn't matter. He's useless. He's been off the scene. What you've been watching for his whole presidency is a body double. And not only that, but he's had different people play the part of Joe Biden, the bumbling geriatric who gets up in front of everyone and talks about soda pop and this fight. And I don't know what we're doing here. What's my wife's name? What's my name? Like, like that whole bumbling, idiotic fool that they put up there is not the leader of the free world. He is not the leader of the free world. He's not the leader of the United States in any way. In fact, what they've been doing is preparing to officially and publicly kind of announce the takeover of America and transfer of power to the Chinese, because the Chinese have controlled the United States for a long time. Now, I know this for a fact, and I've mentioned this before. I know directly from meetings with General Dunford where they were talking about the Chinese have paid the salaries of the United States military for years. That's the Chinese elders, right? That was a fact. And the way they did it, I didn't understand until I met Kim Gogan, who then explained to me how this would happen is absolutely insane, right? But they would get contracts to produce U.S. military equipment. The Chinese elders would get contracts, government contracts, with the U.S. government to produce U.S. military equipment. Then they would lease the equipment back to them, right, based on a grant they received from them. Okay, so they got a grant from the U.S. government to produce U.S. military equipment, then leased it back to them to pay off their other debts. This actually, I might be messing that up, but it's basically like that, right? It's basically like we paid them to pay them for our military equipment, with which this came out in 2018. They found that U.S. battleships were being tracked by the Chinese military. But how could that happen? Well, the way it happened is because the microchips in the U.S. battleships were made in China by the Chinese. This was part of the production contract. So this practice, it's as much as people want to think it's a stretch, they can't believe it. And I'm not trying to hurt any patriots' feelings, but these are absolute facts. Those things were headlines, right? So how on earth could such a horrible decision be made to allow the Chinese to run the U.S. government and military, right? But I know this is true. They've answered. That's one thing I know personally that actually happened. But I'm saying this is something that is very, kind of understood on the highest levels of the military. So anybody part of that military, if they're asking you to do something you don't agree with, in all likelihood, Alex Jones talks about this, right? It has an apocalyptic agenda. They are literally charging to destroy the world. And definitely the United States to transfer power over to the Chinese. That's what they wanted to do. They don't have the ability to. So just, put away your pitchforks. They don't have the ability to pull that off. They can't. But Alex Jones starts talking about Joe Biden, how this was the plan, how they were going to take a shot, right, and try to kill Trump. And if they didn't kill Trump, they were going to kill Biden, right? So people are demanding to get proof of life, right, on Joe Biden. So the other day, he called in from somewhere on a conference call or something, which, after he dropped out of the election. So that's kind of what Alex Jones was talking about, this grand scheme, right, of how the deep state is making their move, is what he was saying.
But something's happened, because we were receiving phone calls from people that don't believe in this, and they were like, "Is Joe Biden dead?" Because it's everywhere. Like, would you like to say your experience? Because I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, which one? I'm sorry, but like my dad calling?
The call you got today. That was one of the calls you got today. Yeah.
My dad, who's by no means a conspiracy theorist, although he's very supportive, he reached out and was like, he's like, "Hey, word on the street is Biden's dead. what do you know about that?" Right? So I was like, "Well, Dad, he's been dead, to be honest." But so that's something out there that people.
But people are now hearing this, and so it's now going, hey, a second, if that's the case, maybe these conspiracy theorist people, the, cone hats, were probably a little bit right. They're right about COVID. Holy moly. That's what I'm seeing. I don't know, what's your thoughts about that?
Well, you'd like to think that people are catching on, right? But to talk about the Democratic monster that's out there, the Biden et al. Group, right? To say that they're corrupt, it's like calling a kettle black, right? It's like, hey, big news. It's like, so, that I think people will embrace. Like, we knew he was corrupt, right? Like, obviously, there's, his son, there's so much video footage, photographs, arrest warrants, and now convictions about what Hunter Biden was involved with. In fact, when Barack Obama was still in office, the videos are like, there's actual video and film where in photographs of Hunter Biden with Barack Obama's underage daughters, right, doing sexual things, right? And you have to know that the presidency is corrupt, the White House is corrupt, the government is corrupt, because think about it. This is the daughter of the US president. Do you think she goes anywhere without 3 Secret Service guys tailing her all the time? The daughter of the first and only black president. So think about it. That no matter where she goes, she's a target, right? So do you think this underage girl was, involved in these sexual activities with Hunter Biden, who I think was like 30 at the time, 30 something at the time, right? So do you think that was happening without their knowledge? No, they were fully aware that was happening. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they were there taking pictures.
Okay, let's just say this. Let's just say that they didn't know. There's evidence of this out there, right?
Yes, there's evidence of this out there.
Have they come out and said, we're getting our daughter help and we want to help people? Have they said anything like that? Because I think about it, as a parent, if, for example, you know this was happening, wouldn't you then go, I have the opportunity, the ability to speak up, I have the platform, and guess what? This Franklin, watch yourself.
You want to pull back on the mother part of that? Mother Franklin was, yeah. Yes, Mother Franklin. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just trying to be.
Okay.
Yeah, I am. Anyway, so point to the story. So, in honesty, like, think about it. Have they said anything? It kind of just does put into question going, we did know, and you haven't said nothing? Because the thing is, it's hard for people to believe. It is, to think, hang on a second, these governments lying to us, this has been happening this whole time under my nose. Like, there's a lot of, allegations out there that are true, but it's hard for people to get their heads around it. And then they can go, okay, I can understand that they're being trafficked. I've heard people say this, I've seen it. But to go to the point that now they've got to actually do this for this reason, the reasons that we know of, they're like, that's a little bit too much. And I think it's a lot for people to, absorb, because it is really heartbreaking to think that we allowed this to go on for so long, that there was more to it. That I don't support ours. There was too many things. I ran, follow the money. That's the only thing I can say. Follow the money, you'll get all of your answers. And so, things like that. But I'm just thinking about this going, wouldn't you?
Well, here's the thing, right? If you're Barack Obama and you acknowledge and address this in any way, other than dismissing it, which is what he's done. He's like basically like, this is a fairy tale. This is nonsense. This never happened. It's all fake news, right? He just kind of dismissed everything. It's the only way to go. If he addresses any part of that directly, you immediately give credibility to it.
There's your answer. Like, that's what I feel like. I feel like there's your answer. You should kind of just know, look, they're all in the same basket. Anyways, what else? Because, this subject is, one of these things, I think it's on a lot of people's heartstrings here. Because, like, even thinking about it makes me mad. I'm like, what kind of father are you? And I really just want to, like, ugh. So, what else did Kimberly say on the situation report?
So we haven't even got past. I mean, she just kind of flashed Alex Jones up there, and she kind of went into, Alex Jones being in bed with more of the Trump camp, right? The Trump operatives, right? Yeah. And she kind of explained this, and it's a great point, because Alex Jones talked about. He made a good reference. He said Woodrow Wilson. Now, Woodrow Wilson was president back in 1913-ish, and basically he's the one that brought in the Federal Reserve, right? And so when this happened, he was dead for 6 months before anyone knew, right? That's a fact. But that's not the only president that's happened to. I mean, I'm sure it's happened to many, actually. Another one is George H.W. Bush Sr. was president. He died in 2014. That's directly from his Secret Service guys that he died in 2014. And then they never announced it until 2018, when it was convenient and served a purpose. Now, George H.W. Bush was the Black Dragon, or the head of the Black Dragon families. In other words, he was Order of the Black Sun, right? And part of the Dragon families, right? And so he had a notorious, ruthless reputation, right? And he had certain security clearance and access to things. So what they do is they'll keep these presidents or these characters alive, figuratively, right? Because of their brand, right? Their name, their reputation, it represents something. So keeping that alive long past and after their death is very common practice, right? So you've heard Kim Gogan talk about this, how Donald Trump died of pancreatic cancer in 2022. I know that's an alarming, shocking, and ridiculous thing to say to most people because we just saw him speak in front of a crowd. But that came directly from Don Jr., right? He gave that information directly to Tom Melville. So that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
Right? That really happened. Then they deny it like it never happened. Why? Because they keep the Trump brand going.
By brand, why would that be so, like, can you just explain to someone that doesn't understand what that means?
Well, think about it. Trump is the rock star, the underdog billionaire who went after the deep state, who called the news out on their bullshit and said it's fake news. What you're saying is fake. It's not true. He's the one that went after NATO, right, and cut ties with NATO. He's the one that pulled us out of the United Nations. He's the one that brought manufacturing back to the United States. He's the everyman's guy who got up there and spoke to everyone, said the news is bad, these guys are bad, the government's corrupt, I'm going to drain the swamp. And he picked a fight with everybody. That brand, I think that has power. That has incredible power. And people believe in it, right? It spawned the entire Q movement, right? Q was for question, right? Q would come out. He was somebody inside of Trump's cabinet who had direct access, and he had Q level clearance, right? And he would ask like 9 questions. And those questions would get people to go out and do research for themselves. And in their research, they would discover the answers to those questions and they would perpetuate everything themselves. And these things were true. They were really amazing. Some of the things, even you've talked about this, that kind of opened up a lot of people's eyes, right?
Yeah, I think it did. I think it helped to, awaken people. And then you kind of were like, you can then now go to doors. Other doors would open up. Because some things just didn't make sense. Because the thing of me is, especially like I remember in 2020, I would look, I don't like politics, but I would look at when Trump and Clinton at that time. And I'm like, come on, say something, do something. Even I believed in Trump. I was like, you know what? I first mocked the United States, but then afterwards I was a bit like, okay, let's go with this. Let's see if you really are going to, do something, then do it. Put your money where your mouth is. Never did. And I kind of got to a point that I remember saying to people, stop, don't follow a person. Follow the mission. Don't follow a person. And I feel like if you kind of have that mindset, it's like, there are people out there that wanted to help that perhaps don't know that they're actually bad intel out there, but they have their heart in the right place. And one day they're going to come out and say, actually, I had information incorrectly. Does it mean that they didn't have a special gift? They did. They were just, they got misled. Or the other thing is, the SIP program, we were talking about this. Perhaps could there be a program out there about being, not only a you a savior program,
Oh yeah.
That, they'd be saved. But the other thing is, what if the person, like all these people that are like, I want to save the world, what if you have the savior program? What do you call it? The hero complex or something like that?
A hero complex. Yeah.
And
now I believe, look, now don't get me wrong. I believe there's a positive way to look at a hero complex. So just for the record, right? I actually created a company with my sons called Hero Complex Creations. But that was based on superheroes. But a hero complex in psychological terms, right? Is yeah, go ahead.
I think there's a big difference between hero complex or saying, you want to help the world to um, you need to follow me for these reasons and you're going to be the best if you, like, I'll give you the recipe for it. And just follow me and that's it. And if you're not in our group, out you go, we'll cast you and blah, 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 blah. It's just like, there's a big difference. Like, if you are here to teach people, then teach. You know, what was it? Do, learn, do, teach.
Yeah.
Leela told us that. So, like, for me, I'm like, I look at it, I'm like, there has to be something there too, that, because I keep coming back to, as sovereignty, even though that all these programs, all these things are being run, which I'm so excited to hear more about all these other amazing stuff that she was talking about. However, there's got to be something. This is just a question. I want to know your thoughts about this. Is, since we're sovereign, and even those things are getting removed out of the system and being transmuted into something positive, could we have reminiscences or could we have stuff inside us that, as sovereign, we have to get out of us first? Did I say that correctly?
Yeah, I think that's something that is it's a very deep point to talk about, right? So here's the thing. You can change the law, basically, is what we're saying. You can change the law, the rules, even the environment. Until people change their mind, it doesn't matter, right? Because until that's something that's real within a person. Now, from a spiritual healing standpoint, that requires us to ask those questions of ourselves, right? Do I still have a slave mentality, for example, right?
Hmm.
Like we talk about this a lot when we were doing the assemblies about slave mentality, like where we think we need to ask permission to be free, right? Where you'd have the slave owner come out to the slave's house, right, on the plantation, and ask the slave owner's, parents, hey, how's your boy doing? How's your son? How's your daughter? And the parent, to keep the family together, would say, oh, they're dumb as a box of rocks and they got a weak back, and they say all these negative things about their kids so that the slave owner wouldn't take the kid and sell the kid, right? So that mentality perpetuates from generation, right? Where people then will continue to say negative things about the people they love, in with that slave mentality. But also slave mentality includes, think about this. We were talking about the assemblies and basically declaring our freedom, right? And basically saying, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this. And people would say, well, we have to file with this office. Well, we're saying that this government office only exists in the 10-mile radius around Washington, D.C. They only have power in Washington, D.C. The laws they make as a federal government only exist in that 10-mile radius. Why then do I have to file anything with them? They are my slave master. They are my captor, right? And what happens is we all got Stockholm syndrome and we thought we had to ask their permission to be free. But in fact, we are free. We are sovereign. Now, getting that mentality in everything you do and embracing, I am sovereign, I have the right to do certain things, requires that we then take responsibility for the rights that we have, right? Now, no one can define those for you. You know what they are innately, right? You have the right to love. You have the right to have offspring. You have the right to travel. You have the right to live and pursue happiness in any way that doesn't hurt someone else. These are all things that are natural laws, innate and ingrained in us. It's just like you don't have to tell someone that lying is wrong. They just naturally know it's wrong. That's why they hide it, right? We don't have to tell someone that stealing is wrong. We naturally know it. And then when you do something wrong, there's a way to make up for it, right? If you've done somebody wrong, make it right. Kind of a simple principle, right? Like, it's simple.
Yeah.
So being sovereign means taking responsibility for who you are fully and completely, and all the ways that that's manifest and what it means to you, right? And recognizing that. And then if someone points something out, too, also being responsible to listen to other people. We oftentimes think I have to have the exact same definition of what good looks like as someone else so I can fit in reality, our differences are the things that should actually bring us together. I need you to be different than me. I need you to look at things differently than me because we're part of a sovereign collective that when we are connected with others who have different ideas and different ways of thinking and different values, different tastes, all those different things can actually make us stronger when you realize, hey, if I can just embrace the you are not me, what that does is it now empowers me to be myself because I'm the only one, right?
Mm,
I'm the only one. So because I'm the only me, there's no one else like me. I'm one of a kind, right? So are you. And when you're one of a kind, do you know how they assess value of things? Like diamonds, for example. You know when diamonds are really valuable? When they're really rare, right? When you have less diamonds, they're more valuable. When you have less gold, it's more valuable. The less you have of something, the more valuable it is. Now, think about this. In all of God's infinite wisdom, He made one you, just one.
mm,
So
yeah.
think about it. How valuable must you be? You are one of a kind. You're the original. You're the only one that exists. So you are incredibly valuable with all your quirks, all the things you love, all the little things about you that makes you you. So those things, when you start to appreciate those qualities in someone else instead of competing with them, you can now
Mm,
appreciate how they bring us closer together and make us stronger as a collective.
yeah, empowering each other, supporting each other. So yeah, I agree with you. And I think people are getting there. You know, I think it's an in lesson. That's just my opinion because it's been a tough road. Like this has been going on for quite some time. So I just think people just need to. I don't know. I just think in there. I'd like to hope we've learned something. And I also believe a lot of people are also coming to realizing that something is not right, and I think they're really scared. And I think that's why we want to talk because I feel like it's like there's nothing to be scared about right now. I think this is a magical time, and I feel scary because there's so much new energy coming. However, you know, I just think we just adapt to it. We just don't know this energy, so it is a little bit scary. But we were talking about this, saying there's got to be a little bit like a middle ground with God, going, hey, listen, you kind of had this in place. So, Kim did speak about how the light is winning. How could you just tell me a little bit more what happened in there? Like, there's so many amazing things that I want to talk about. So,
Oh my
there's a
gosh, this is where the show takes a whole different look because the things that Kim talked about are things I've heard about, but didn't really appreciate the context the way that she described it.
mhm,
So she was talking about these. One of the things that's been a big challenge for anybody who's been following, even if you were following um, Ben Fulford or someone like that, right?
mhm,
The never ending resilience of the deep state machine, right? Basically, it seems like no matter what Kim has taken from them, they keep coming back and fighting again and fighting again and fighting again, no matter what, and with absolutely impossible odds. Their entire hierarchy, all the black nobility has been killed off. The parents and the covens, the unholy trinity at the top. All of these groups that like the people behind the scenes, behind the scenes, behind the scenes, who really ran the world have been eliminated. All of the major computer systems, the quantum mapping system that ran the world, the Alpha Omega system, the Omega system has been eliminated. Alpha has been repurposed now as the light system. Now I believe she actually renamed it to the Golden Age system, and I'm going to explain that. So basically, this big problem that was happening, right? They tracked back, why do they keep coming back and where are they getting instructions from, right? Because that's what didn't make sense. They kept getting bad information. So this applies to the all of the Trump operatives, all the, who some refer to as the cowboys, right? All of those in the backside, all these groups that are running operations, basically they were told that we're about to be on agenda apocalypse, Earth be destroyed, right? And they were told that on August 19th, that 144,000 of the chosen would be picked up by this alien race that loves them, right? So they were willing to take steps to kill everybody else on the planet for that 144,000 to be saved. Okay. Now, in case you probably have heard of that number, right? It's referenced in the Bible, right? 144,000. Well, I think in the ones that crossed over the Jordan River in the Promised Land. The Jehovah's Witnesses use that term to say that only 144,000 on Earth will be saved, and they've literally gone door to door to door. You go on a 2-year mission to go out and preach about Jehovah's Witnesses, right? They've gone out to witness about, I think it's John Smith or Joe Smith, right? The founding father of Jehovah's Witnesses or the Mormons. I might be getting those confused, but somewhere in that world, right? 144,000. So this number. Now, also, if you talk to spiritualists or people more involved, they'll talk about how 144,000 is actually referring to the number of DNA that we actually have, right? They'll talk about that. So that number is significant, right? So this information was coming down to wherever the Trump operatives were. And they're the ones running governments all over the world to destroy the world, right? And Kim had just talked about this, about how the Pentagon and the different groups were getting ready to play nuclear warfare with each other. And basically, they thought they had the nuclear codes, and they were just going to start bombing China, then China bombing America, and until we basically destroyed the world. So all of the idiots in the deep state, you are on the destroy the world agenda. You think it's because you are preferred and favored by alien gods or whatever it is that you're worshiping, right? And because of this, you continue to do idiotic things that will hurt everyone, including you, right? So that's the big thing. So the question was, where is this direction coming from, right? You heard that, right? Okay, so she talked about. So this is what she talked about, and this is fascinating to me. Now there was source, which would be, you'd be like God or the ultimate source. Then there was anti-source, which kind of connected to like the devil, right? I'm just going to put it in those terms. Now anti-source and the lower astral realms have been eliminated, so there's nothing coming from there to this place anymore. Nothing, right? So what happened was she talked about the heliosphere, right, which is like this belt that protects us from like solar winds and things like that, right? You can look up Voyager. I guess there's a satellite out there where you can see it. So out in the heliosphere, there were these tetrahedrons, and these tetrahedrons, she actually showed a picture of them, which actually this kind of freaked me out a little bit, right? Because I've seen these before. I've seen these tetrahedrons in visions. I've tried to do certain things and been blocked by them. So I thought it was really interesting. Like, oh, okay. And it kind of looks like an upside down pyramid floating in space is what the picture was that Kim showed. Now, these tetrahedrons were some kind of sentient AI, right? Maleficent, a negative AI, basically, right? And they connected directly to anti-source. But because anti-source is gone, they no longer have the ability to make judgment calls, right? Because they have no source of intelligence. So what they do have, though, is a lot of knowledge. So they have the last orders given, right? So last orders given by whatever, basically they have a directive in their programming that basically says, when humanity gets too light, you have to extinguish them. You have to eliminate them, right? And so the orders on this machine, it doesn't care what it says. It doesn't care if it lies. So it's been giving direction to the Trump operatives, the humans on Earth, right, that are for it, been giving them direction, right? And so, and they've been wrong over and over again. They, like, it would constantly tell them different things, like this could happen or this could happen, engage in this system, engage in this system, go find this secret, arc here, or go find this secret book here, read this, sacrifice these people, and all these are things that could have potentially worked at some point, right? But it's based on knowledge versus wisdom. Now, knowledge is just a collection of information, right? So all it can be is what it already is. Wisdom is the judicious application of knowledge, right? So I use example like lots of people know, they have the knowledge that smoking will kill them. But wisdom would be to stop smoking, right? That's the action associated with it based on the knowledge that you have. So this machine had no wisdom, right? Divine wisdom directly from a source. That still small voice inside of you that tells you when something's good or bad or right or wrong or whatever, right? So these machines don't have that. They don't have a conscience, so to speak. So all it cared about, these different I forgot what it's called, tetrahedrons all over. But all they had was basically knowledge of what they were told had to happen. And so the Trump operatives have been in all the different dragon families, I guess, all these different Black Sun groups have all been listening to the direction and orders from this machine, these machines, right? That have basically been telling them how to destroy themselves, right? And they run right into it like, oh, okay, great. That's what I'm going to do. Like, and they thought they were preferred by whatever alien race, and they were going to get picked up in spaceships, 144,000 of the chosen, to rule on another planet. Right? So the first thing is, you deep state people, you are not preferred by them. They do not care about you. That's the first thing. It's important to know. They literally just saw you as the highest level slaves, or the most gullible slaves who would do what they were told. So you have been blindly led around and followed these, entities and direction because you thought you were connected to something that was higher than God, but it's not. It's not higher than God. It's not higher than source in any way. Okay. And so what Kim did is she severed the communication for these groups, like over the weekend. So she severed the communication from this device. I'm not sure if that means that they're all destroyed exactly, but basically the order suddenly realized, as all these things that are supposed to happen started coming online, because this thing stopped interfering, this tetrahedron. And I think she said there was millions of them, so I'm not sure if that's a bunch of them or what it was. But basically this was infecting everyone. That makes sense?
It does. You cut out a little bit, so I'm not sure if other people saw you cut out. So that's all. I was just double checking. No, it does make sense. Continue.
So the Trump operatives have been following that, and all of these different groups have been leading everyone off a cliff to destroy the world with the intent of killing everyone. Just to be perfectly clear, that was the plan, right?
But not going to happen.
No, will not happen. Now, if I understood this correctly, she talked about archons, right?
Okay.
Now, archons were sentient AI, so basically they have their own consciousness, right? These AI, that work inside of computers or beings. I'm not sure exactly what they are, but she references, there's something that archon is an acronym for something that I don't know. But basically it works within these computer systems and everything was connected, right? So the original use for the archons was, I guess there was light ones, dark ones, and neutral ones, right? But originally, what they were meant to do was nothing more than record history. That's what they were to do, right? Just record history. They were like watchers. The Archon would be sounds to me kind of like an archivist, right? They were
Yeah.
supposed to record information, right?
Yeah.
And just relay the information, almost kind of neutral, like this is what's happening, right? But they were ultimately transmuted into darkness by like Marduk and Anu and Enlil and Enki, all these guys, right? And
Yeah.
turned into parasites. So she talked about, now this is a good connection. She talked about how these would cause, because what would happen is the Omega system that connected to anti-source would feed off of our life force energy. And the Archons were the parasites that fed Omega. Right?
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And now she has now changed this. So they're no longer parasites or no longer here or eliminated.
Okay. So many people. Well, I don't know. First of all, there are parasites that live in us. There are good and bad parasites. Correct? Just so.
Yeah, I'm not an expert on parasites, but yes.
Okay. But so for what I know, that there are good and bad parasites. That's number one. But then there's etheric parasites as well. So these things, you would say they're more etheric parasites, or they were?
Yes, I mean, to the best of my knowledge, I'm not sure. They might have had a physical form as well. I don't fully understand that.
No, but that's really impressive. Like, just to know that, because anyone that, knows a little bit about this is incredible. Because having an etheric parasite or parasites that are not good for us can actually cause a lot of harm. Obviously, in our person, but energetically as well, you can contaminate other people with that. It can affect your luck, it can affect your wealth, it can affect your just everything. Like, things can just go wrong in your life, as if it would work as like a bad luck, or people would say it's a curse or something like that. People don't know that etheric parasites can actually do this too, which I would love to have Wizard on here to talk about this. He's the one that's educated us in regards to this. So
Wizard is really good at that.
He's like, the way he's discussed and explained it to me with such detail, I'm like, holy moly, I need to get these things out of me. So he's been working with us, because I feel like it's really important to always make sure that you're clearing you're working with your energy, making sure you are not contaminating, or if not, trying your best at least. But this is incredible. If this was the problem and they were doing this, holy moly. Like, I don't know about you, but we've been hearing a lot of people saying they're really nauseous, they feel really lethargic. I'm like going, well, this could be these parasites releasing. And this is causing us this feelings, emotions, whatever it is. Because remember when you did the zeolite cleanse?
Yeah, I did a zeolite cleanse before this, where not on purpose, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody told me the wrong dosing. So like I did like 20 times the dose of a zeolite.
And at the time, it was root product, and we've also recommend one on the chat of the one that is the most ethical zeolite that we recommend. So it's on our chat. However, once you did that, because at the time that product was good, right?
It was that was the original formula, and it was so painful. I could feel every hair on my body. I don't know if you know what that's like, but if you can feel every hair on your body, it was like, oh. So I don't know but I was detoxing on a severe level, and I remember thinking like all the hairs on my body are attached to like little monsters, or like I forget what they're called, but like I mean, like it was horrifying. I realized that detox, and it was great. I'm glad I went through it, but it was really painful.
Well, yeah, you're a real trooper a lot of the times. Like, if you're sick or whatever you're going through, you usually just continue. Like, that's just you. That time, it was, I couldn't ask you for anything. So you're like, oh.
It was terrible. It was so bad. I mean, thank God it was temporary, but I mean, I was in pain. I didn't want to move anything. Yeah. So, but point being is that when you're detoxing from parasites,
Yeah.
it can be very painful because your body is in this massive healing mode
Yeah.
and you're
And you can
getting rid of
actually,
things it's used to.
that's right. And you sometimes can even feel it coming out of your body as well. Like it feels like a little pinch coming out. Like, what is that? And you're like, oh, and it's just going out of you. That's the other thing myself and clients that I've had, have experienced that. And they're like, and we were removing a parasite. And they were like, it came out of them. Like, so it was pretty cool.
So that's what you would call a healing crisis, right? Like that's a term they use in holistic, when someone detoxes on a severe way, it's called a healing crisis,
Yes,
right?
that's
So
true.
you're healing so much, but it hurts. And a lot of
Well,
times this,
not necessarily. Like at that time when the parasite came out, it was leaving the body. So you felt the pin, like it literally felt like a needle like coming out, and then it's gone. What you experienced was a healing crisis, and yeah, sorry,
yeah,
just
healing doesn't always have to hurt for
no.
sure. But I'm saying sometimes, like a lot of times, this does happen. People will
Yes.
go through a healing crisis. And
Mhm.
when people go through a healing crisis, a lot of times, unfortunately, it dissuades people from wanting to, heal, right? Because we get comfortable with our malady, our infirmity, right? And giving that up or getting rid of it can be painful, at least temporarily. But that's the thing to know, is that it's temporary, right?
Yeah.
So that's why we're sharing it now, because I think that's a great point, that it's possible, at least in my perception and yours, right? That what could be happening with these archons being removed as parasites, people could be experiencing a type of healing crisis, right?
They could be.
Where they're
Yeah.
feeling it. So don't be surprised if you're going through that. It doesn't mean things are going bad. It just means you're going through something that's going to be good for you later,
Yeah.
and not in a long way either, because these things are happening very fast, right? These are things that are happening energetically. Architecture for cooperative heterogeneous online systems. Thank you, AJ. Appreciate that. So, and that's what Archon stands for. I couldn't quite remember what it was attached to, right? But so, anyways, these archons, right, were in everything, and now they're being eliminated, removed, or even repurposed. I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly with that, but definitely not what they were. They're not parasiting your energy to supply energy to the Omega system, because the Omega system has been removed. Anti-source has been removed. So also these tetrahedrons, they are now should be ultimately cut off. What she described it as, I thought was great, because I've actually talked to him about things like this before, where these AI systems, they have to learn differently, right? So they got really confused. They didn't understand. And the reason why they were confused is because they didn't have any programming to know what to do in a golden age, right? So we have crossed over into a golden age.
Mhm.
So Kim, she had labeled it the light system. And this is a programming thing, right? So language you use is very important. So my understanding of what she said was she reprogrammed the system to identify as the golden age system, right? So that's the new system we're in. So these tetrahedrons that were giving out orders stopped being able to communicate and give out orders because they had no programming for what to do during a golden age, right? So now we're in this golden age, and that's how. Now I find this fascinating, because we do this kind of thing all the time with healing, where you change the language and literally remove something from yourself by changing your own programming.
Yeah.
Right? Is that a good way to say it? I think that makes sense.
Yeah. Depends how you're trying to program, like, some things. Like, what are you trying to say? Like when we're removing, like replacing a word, or
Yeah, like anything. Like think about it. Like you like words are important, right? Like
Yeah.
words are important, but the feeling and energy behind them is even more important, of course, right?
Yeah.
But like sometimes you'll be experiencing anxiety. I'll use this one. People often express love through worry. But these are these are completely conflicting emotions. right? But we think worry is love, right? So in our consciousness, we might think I need to worry because I love this person, right? But you can actually consciously be like, okay, I'm going to remove worry from my essence, energy, consciousness, frequency, and matter. I'm going to replace it with love, faith, and confidence, or whatever, and remove it from yourself and then seal it off, right? Now we do, like I practice this, literally I do this
He
every
has a
time.
full-on thing that we're going to break down. Like, he just did a little bit of it, but I'm so proud of you. Like, you did good. He kind of like hid back a little bit, but he has been doing, transmuting this darkness to light. And I feel like if you don't know, transmute or darkness to light. You can never go wrong with love, light, and transmuting darkness to light. So sometimes, because when you're healing, you're like, am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? It doesn't matter. It's the intention. That I think is really important. It's to say it's the intention. Our creator knows what's in our heart. So, that's something that we're going to dive into in regards to, and do some shows and post that out, but it won't be live. It'll be pre-recorded and then we'll send it out. So yeah, so continue.
And plus, not a recipe that anyone has to follow, just what we do.
No, yeah. It's lovely to hear other people's experience. How do you do it? What do you do? Because then you're going to grab it and go, you know what, that works for me. I'm going to try it out. And if it works, great. Run with it. Make it better. And if you make it better, tell us. And so then maybe we can use it too. So I think it's really important. Like, everyone has different gifts. And in this time, like you were talking about before, was like, we got to come together, and help each other out and not use each other, but like, go, okay, what are you good at? How can we make our community better? How can we make anything better? Because look, I can do this. What can you do? And I think that's really important, especially right now. There's a lot of fear going out. However, if you are connected to your creator, you will be getting a lot of messages that it's like telling you, hey, calm down. It's going to be okay. Like, I don't know about you, but like, even though the energy's a bit, funny, like, it still feels like, no, we're there. I don't know about you, Mr. Al. What do you think?
I agree. I actually think that, what I see is that as we're healing, a lot of times things will come back up. I don't see that happening now. As we heal things, it seems that we're able to stabilize, because it's not just about getting to a certain frequency, it's about maintaining that frequency, right?
Yeah.
And then kind of allowing that to be, like stabilizing a foothold and then going up a level, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or, however you see that to be, or being able to move freely.
Or even like thanking it as well. Sometimes you just have to look at it and say, thank you. Thank you for showing me this, because you know what, now I am stronger because of this. The other thing is, as you are going through it and something comes up, even if you did heal it, it's not going to be as much as before. So maybe it was, 80%. Then it'll be 50% still there. And then maybe it'll just be like 5%, but that 5% is going to keep coming up until it's actually completely clean, completely healed, or whatever it is. Even, transmuted from darkness to light, forgiven, accepted. Everyone is different. They're like, it doesn't matter. Listen and trust yourself. Like, this is what's so magical right now. I feel like if you just trust yourself, you'll get the answers. And, we were doing this, and now it's just so much. Again, there are some stuff that we've got to really think about, but other stuff that we've healed and it comes up, we're like, oh, we can do that. And it actually is quicker, or we just automatically are doing it. So have you been experiencing that? Because it feels like there's like a open line just telling us, okay, this is what you have to do, or giving you even directions or guidance.
Well, I mean, that's what Kim has been talking about with this direct current, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I consciously am working, or not even working. I don't want to say that, but I am consciously aware of this direct current every day and doing all I can to become more and more aware of how that affects everything in my life, how I can use that to be the best version of myself. And, what happens is, it's kind of like, as you allow yourself to shine, you give other people the permission to do the same. Right. So,
yeah.
and the more that we heal ourselves, naturally it's not like all of a sudden every problem you have disappears. However, they don't seem so all consuming, right? They certainly seem like, oh, I know the answer to this, right? I know exactly what to do here. And even when it's not exactly what you think you should, when you start to listen and tune into that, in the Bible, it describes it as that still small voice, right? But I believe the more you listen to that voice, the louder and louder it gets until you hear your own voice saying it, right?
But it could be your voice, it could be dreams, it could be a feeling, it could be like a little image. Like it's everyone's different. But like you just said just now, I'm like, I love what you just said actually. So sorry, continue.
Yeah. So just by us healing ourselves right now, Laura talks to me about this literally every day, right? As we heal ourselves, we change the system. We are our own golden age system now, right? We are our own mini version of this system. I mean, think about there is, in the Bible it talks about how you are made in the likeness and image of your creator, right? Well, imagine that means your body is this incredible magical thing, right? I mean, the machinery of the human body is absolutely incredible. It's always fascinated me my whole life. And the more you understand about it, the more you realize just how amazing you actually are. And the limits that we have been placed on us based on the knowledge we had really don't define us, because now we realize we can live longer, we can live stronger, we can see further. We look, as I always say, we can fly, right? We can,
Why
we
not?
can. Oh, well, that's what I'm saying. So, and Kim talked about that too. Oh, wait, here, let me throw this one piece in there. This was really important
Mm-hmm.
because I had a direct experience with this. That's why when Kim brought me into the system, when I first was trying to, kind of match the frequency to go into the system, the first
Yes.
thing that happened to me is I had this black triangle. That's what I described to Kim, this black triangle that was preventing me from getting into the system. Now,
Wow.
what she talked about was, and I might cross these things over, but she talked about these tetrahedrons and these archons and different things, how they would prevent you from connecting directly to source. And then she showed the picture of the tetrahedron. I'm like, oh, I had that experience. It was preventing me from connecting. Right.
And didn't you draw it out?
Yeah, I have some drawings of this. I used to draw all my visions. Yeah. Like
So
anything I saw.
we're gonna find it and we'll post it on our chat so everyone can actually see that, because I think it's like, I think it's impressive to go through your book sometimes and I'm like, you'll show me some stuff in your books and I'm like, I've seen this before. Or you'll be like, hang on a second, I know this, and you'll go back to it and I'm like, this is pretty cool. Yeah, your own little talent there, just one thing.
I recommend that to anybody. I to myself included. It's something I should do more. Kim actually talked about this the other day too, and I thought this was so important. I've told my kids this their whole life. The highest state of existence is when you are creating. Right? We're made in the likeness and image of our creator. Of all the words, God or source could have used there, he said your creator. So our most natural state is when we are creating something. Right? So you want to connect to God, you want to be closer. Now, it doesn't matter what you're creating, but the more you are creative and use that energy, the closer you'll be to God. So I think that's a great, simple way that's not too woo-woo for people or too esoteric. It's simple. And this is true. If you ever see somebody singing with all their heart, right? A song they wrote, but singing a song they wrote, right? They're creating a sound and an energy. You ever see somebody when they're painting? I mean, I remember I would sculpt and paint so late into the night, I would forget, and all of a sudden it was the next day, right? In these times, in these moments, is where you're connecting. Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's anything that you're passionate about. It can be anything, because I believe you can create, like if you're a lawyer, you create contracts, you go through, there's so many things, but when you're passionate about something, that changes the game. I can say for myself.
Yeah, and I agree. It's anything you're creating. It can be writing. It doesn't matter what it is,
Yep.
right? It doesn't. I mean, it can just be creating a better space in your home. But
Yeah.
it's when you're accessing what's creative to you, right? And that could be anything. Some people create communities, right? Some people create a mess. I mean, whatever. But like, find a way to be creative in what you're doing. I really think that will give anybody a head start, especially people who think they're not creative. Everybody's creative. Believe it or not, it's there. And it's the highest level of actually thinking. The more creative you are, the better solutions you'll come up with in anything.
Well, I think like when you think about creating something, you think about artists, they're painting, you'll think about, creating something, but I feel like you could create a business,
Yeah.
From scratch. This is what I love. Like for me, I'm like, what does sovereign mean to me? Well, sovereign means to me, I'm my own boss. That's what it means to me. And I think that's what we're in this incredible time, that we are our own boss. And we just have to find our calling. And actually not find, remember. Because I feel like we just know it. We just need to remember it.
Yeah. That is something I've heard many times. All learning is remembering. All right. Because you are the complete embodiment. I always look at it this way, that if you look at the ultimate source of creation, that means the all in all. That means all the planets, all the dust, all the people, all the animal, all in all. To do that, God had to take from his own substance and define it differently than himself. Because if everything knew everything all the time, everything would just be a big, androgynous blob of nothingness. But by defining things, like you are this, and basically he took a portion of himself and said, you won't remember this, you just know this. Now you create and define different parts. And what you do is you are still the one experiencing it. So God is experiencing it as you. This is, God's experience as you, as a dog, as a tree. This is God's experience in what he's experiencing, that because he took a portion of himself and limited what that portion knew about its ultimate source, right? Now, what we have the right and authority to do is to call on those memories and start to use them in our life. How to do that exactly, that's something we have a whole. I can't say exactly how to just recall this. What I know Kim did say though is that our memories from previous lifetimes would start to return.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know what that looks like. What do you think that looks like?
I think we've discussed this before. I feel like we will get the memories we need as we need them. Take what you need, leave the rest. I I feel like what, Mr. Rao?
I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. That's the very responsible way to look at it, is what I was thinking just now. I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. That's probably the way to look.
Well, the thing is that you've got to remember, some people can take it. Some people can take it and they'll be all right. And some people just won't be okay. So therefore, God knows that. So he'll be like, okay, I'm going to give it to you slowly, sister. So calm down. It's okay. Don't have a panic attack. All right. We're good. Ready? We're going to do this together. And then the other one's probably like going, oh my Lord, I just got this amazing download and blah, 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 blah. And you're like, I'm just trying to control my breathing right here, But I think everyone goes at their own pace. And sometimes what you need at that time will help someone else. And then later on in life, they'll probably, 10 days from now, what you need to hear, they'll tell you, and then it's like, oh, they'll trigger your memory and go, oh, I needed to know that. Thank you. And then you will then go off and do whatever the calling is asking you to do. It reminds me of Manifest, actually, the calling.
I wish I could remember how to fly. So I'm putting that in there. I feel like those are kind of things I want to know,
But you got to learn how to walk in this planet first.
I know how to walk. Thank you very much. I want to know how to fly.
Yeah, but do we really know how to walk? Really? Like, I feel like we're just babies learning how to crawl now because we've never experienced this energy before. And I feel like that's incredible. We're going to be falling, getting back up, going, oh, what does that mean? Oh, I don't know how to do this. Like, one of the things that Kim spoke about, and I don't know, this is my interpretation of it. And I was like, I want to hear what you think. She basically said on the situation report, It doesn't matter. It doesn't, I could be saying it wrong. Please don't, I'm butchering it, but I'm just going to say it in my words. It doesn't matter what you do with the presidency, what you're doing. We already have everything in place. She wasn't going to talk about it.
Really? Yeah.
She wasn't going to talk about it. She said, we have everything in place. I don't know about you, Mr. Rao, but doesn't that seem like, well, if you've got it in place and you don't have to worry about what they're doing, it just basically means that the elections aren't going to happen, which means that we should be starting to see, these are just my thoughts. We are starting to see it energetically, but does that kind of gets me a little bit excited that maybe we're going to start seeing things in the media like we are seeing now, that is Biden alive or dead?
Well, now to that point, Kim did say, and it slips my memory now, but she was talking about this on last Friday, right? They basically tried the global apocalypse, right? There was the big move. They're going to implement the Azure system. Now, I worked with Kim when this happened the first time. The Azure system was connected to the social crediting score, and they were working with the FBI and the NSA for this all-encompassing, ridiculous system that was basically going to govern every aspect of your life. So that system got taken down by Kim, right? So it was inoperable, destroyed, and I think she reigned through the FBI offices and the NSA offices. The same song was like "Let the Bodies Drop" over and over and over again, just to let them know it was her, because she does that, right? So I think that was a song. It could have been something different. But she already destroyed the system once. So here they go again. They try to implement the system. It lasted about 5 minutes. And what did it do? It took down the Sabre system, right, for the airlines. So a lot of people's flights were delayed. It caused some issues with the banking in different banking sectors, right? Like in Australia, like we had some issues moving money, actually just simple money, even like little money. So it definitely had an impact, but that was it. The big impact, though, was on the central banks and the governments. That's where the problem was. But most people's day-to-day life wasn't affected. Now, that to me says a lot about where we're at. Because if we can get to a point where they get taken out, but we're fine, well, ultimately that's what we want. We want them to stop being able to dictate and destroy our life. Because that's what she was saying. So we want them to stop being able to dictate and destroy our life and tell us what to do in a negative sense. I'm not talking about like breaking laws. I'm just saying in a negative sense where they're literally trying to kill us all the time.
Yeah.
And to disable them, but empower us. That's the restoration. Empower the people, disable the order, right? Now, I do think there'll be an election. I do. Because we're so close. But I think what she was saying is it doesn't matter.
I don't know. That's just, sorry, I probably missaid that. But I'm like, not that if there won't be an election, but actually, I have to be honest, I don't think there will be. I think that, I don't know, there's something there that's funny. I don't know. Now I'm just like going to hype it for a little bit.
No. Listen, you make a great point. Look, as far as I know, Hillary Clinton is dead, and she's the number one candidate now for the Democratic Party, last I heard, right? But she's been dead. She's been dead for a while, right? These characters, this is what I mean by they keep these characters alive, but Hillary Clinton has been dead for a long time, for a few years. And so imagine you'd have one dead person running against another dead person for the office of the presidency. Does it matter? Well, no, especially if they no longer control the money. They don't control the military. They don't control the computer systems. They don't control. When they lose all control of those things, what is the government?
But that's what I was going to say. If she's got these things in place, we don't need the government. Isn't that?
Yeah, she said she already has the structure in place and ready to go, which I believe would revolve around care. What that
she didn't say that. She did not say that.
You're right.
She did not say any of that. That's where I was like, Like, I wanted to hear what you thought about that, because I thought that was really interesting there. And I thought to myself, I'm like, if you've got this already ready to go, like, this is pretty incredible. We should be seeing a lot of movement coming soon. And And it's like all of their lies, all of the things that they're, the little puppets that they've, what's been happening, that's all crumbling, which I think is really exciting because this is what we wanted. It doesn't matter if you follow Trump or if you follow Peter, Sarah, Kim, ourselves, it doesn't matter. What do they keep saying? What is the one thing we all have in common? It is time for us to be free. It is time for us to have our power back. It is time for our children to be safe. It is time for, so to be honest, I don't really care what the name is. I don't really care what's going to happen. I just want to see that it's happening. And people are ready to, do their jobs. I think that's something that we need to be thinking about right now is, where are you needed? What do you need to do? Are you ready? Is it a project? Is it communities? Where exactly is your calling? I don't know. What do you think, Mr. Al?
I think it's a great point. Where is people's calling? Look, we're all here with a specific intent and purpose, right? That may evolve and change over a course of a lifespan, right? I remember Kim wrote this article and she was talking about the quantum system one time.
Mm-hmm.
And she was talking about it like a layer cake. And she was saying, as you cut through it, what you do in the present affects both the past, present, and future, right? It extends forward and backwards through time and space, limited by nothing. So what you do, right? What you do now will affect what's happened already and what will happen in the future, right? So what we're doing, the most important moment we've ever been in is now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're watching all these things change. Now, what we do in the next step, in the next moment, is preparing the world. We're creating the world as we go now, because this is the one reality we live in. So I agree. I don't know exactly what Kim is referring to. I know, a couple of years ago, I did a lot of work to try to help set up a structure with kind of base laws, thinking of this in like, this is a transition. And we spent a lot of time restructuring, the United Nations and the Declaration of Independence and kind of setting up new boundaries that we can say, okay, let's start here. Let's start with, we all agree on these basic principles, right? And use that to set up these different organizations. But now I'm not sure what that looks like, because at the end of the day, I don't know if any of it matters until it's rolled out to the people in a way they can comprehend, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's not enough just to tell people, because we've done that, right? We told people lots of things that were true, but a conversation is two parts, right? One person is speaking, one person has to receive it. And
but
when you're
But is it possible that it couldn't happen before because all of these blocks that were happening?
Yeah.
And now are we in a place that maybe we can hear it a little bit more? Like, we're hearing, Biden's dead, on the media, then there are people starting to talk about these things. People are starting to, this is where it's a little bit like, I'm starting to see people go, hang on a second, this has hit the roof and holy Franklins, what do? We need to now go to Jesus. We need to go to our creator, God, Allah, whatever it is. And I'm like, it's still something, even though it's not exactly right. Like there are things in the Bible that are not right. However, I'm like, the energy there must be good. So I'm seeing people starting to look for solutions out there. Now, some may be a little bit, confused or I think people are scared. I think that's what it is. I think people are scared, and right now, because of everything that's going on, they're like, okay, what do we do? Because, I've heard someone say to me, well, you're doing this, and like at the end of the day, there's nothing you can do. Like it's a corruption. And you're never going to stop this. It's just what it is. So what can you do about this is just live the best life you can. And guess what? It is what it is. And I think that a lot of people have that mentality. And the second thing that they have is, don't worry, someone's coming to save us. And it's like, no, you. And I know that sounds really weird. It's like, wait, what? And that's hard for people to understand. But God or whoever you create is in us. And I guess if you kind of say it in that way, you know, I like to say religion, you know, help me out here. This is more your alley. And we were talking about this.
Yeah. So I know what you're getting at is, look, there's something I do think there's something said about this savior syndrome, right? A lot of people looking for a savior, right?
Mhm.
That's part of the problem, right? Is we're looking for something outside of ourselves to come in and rescue us. So we always say that's a problem, right? Now, is it entirely that simple? I don't think so. I don't think it's that simple, right?
Mhm.
So that's one side of it.
Okay.
Because the one side is, well, no, I can't just rely on something outside myself to come in and rescue me. However, there is a part of that is necessary, right? Like I need someone else to play their part, right? I do need to know that God is doing his job. Is it just Jesus comes down and it's miraculously everything's okay? No. There's a process to it, and you have a role to play. You have to contribute in the way that you are inspired to by God in you, or by source or the universe in you, to respond in a way that contributes to make things better. Yes, that is more realistic. Now, the other side of the savior syndrome or the savior program
Mhm.
is the hero complex side, right?
Yeah.
And we didn't actually get to the point with this, but with a hero complex, people think, well, I got to save everybody. It's my job to save everybody. I got to save all these people, right? Even to the point of what people will say. People will say things like, or with the psychological disorder of hero complex, people would create a situation
Mhm.
so they could be a hero, such as burning a building down so they can save people out of the building, right?
Wow.
So that's the negative side of it. That's the negative side of a hero complex, right? But what I'm saying is so that same thing. That's a different way of looking at the savior program as well. I got to save everybody.
Can you give an example on a normal person that would be probably a hero savior? Because I feel like that's extreme. Is there like an example that you can give
I
for
mean,
someone that's out there maybe going, hang on, do I have a savior program? Or do I have the hero complex? What is it called again?
hero complex.
Yeah. Can you give
Yeah,
another example if that's okay?
I mean, sure you can, but this again, I don't think these are necessarily negative. But like, if you feel like you have to be the one who fixes everything, right? You have to go and fix everybody's problem. You're involved in everybody's things, and you have to be in because you always have the answers. You always know best. And
Or is it because you don't want to look at yourself? So you're like looking at everyone else and going, okay, I'm going to fix everyone else because I don't want to fix here, because here right now, I don't want to do that. Could that possibly be a case too?
sure, I mean, I think all of it. I mean, look, like I said, I don't think a hero complex. I think there's a part of people that should be inspired to help other people.
Yes.
So, and I am a believer in that. I do think that. I do think we should take responsibility for each other. I do think if you see someone getting, chased down the street with somebody with a knife, that you should do something, not just close your blinds. I do
I
think
agree with that.
you should if you see a kid who's acting like a jerk, right, and hurting other kids, you should say something. You should, whether it's your kid or not. I do think there's something to that where it gets to be a problem when you, like you said, I haven't done any work on myself. I'm not looking at myself, right?
Yes.
Examine yourself to see whether you are in the faith, whether you are, okay. Because a lot of times that we would do these things, we try to save other people at our expense.
That's the other thing. That's the thing. A lot of people do it at their own expense. And sometimes they don't realize because they think, you know what, I have to do this because that's the right thing to do. And it's like, is it the right thing for you? And you really have to be honest with yourself. And sometimes the answer is no. And so then you kind of go, okay, because you can sometimes go too much. You know, Mr. L, you were like that. I was like that too. And you live and you learn, and I'm grateful for it. You know, because people have come and gone, and you're like, thank you, because of your beautiful, beautiful lessons.
Horrible behavior.
Horrible behavior, but thank you. Because as something goes on, it made me have the strength to say what they were saying wasn't true or whatever it was. You know, you end up thanking that experience. You know, one of your fairy godmothers said it the other day, well, not long ago actually. And they were saying, you know, have you thanked it? And I was like, I don't know, have I? And then I thought about it, I was like, oh, I can thank it because I'm so used to healing. I've got to heal it. And I was like, wait, what else is there? You know, because now there's so many different things out there when it comes to releasing or accepting or embracing, or we just want to be the best humans we can be. That's the reality. If you're watching this, you just want to help and you want the world to change. You want it to be amazing. You want our children safe. You want the restoration to start. And, you know, kudos to you because I think everyone's quite tired right now. And I think that, you know, on the situation report, she did say that, you know, a lot of people that are watching this, most likely you have some special gifts, like incredible gifts. You know, I think this is the time we start putting it forward and helping each other, or not even that, helping yourselves and then touching the stars and beyond. I know that sounds, you know, very fairyland, but you know what? That's who I am. I believe in fairylands and that, you know, we don't have to live like this. They're forcing us. They're still forcing us to, you know, the way that the narratives that they're putting out on the news, TikTok, social media. Just change it, change your reality. And, you know, it just can start off as simple as changing your words. Just by saying, I am light, I am love, or I am amazing, or I can do anything when I put my mind to it. And it doesn't matter. That little change, you'll start to see amazing things come and your reality will just shift and then more things will come. And I think that's what we're experiencing. And I've been speaking to a lot of people that have been experiencing the same thing, and not all these people that are just, you know, conspiracy theorists or Kim lovers. Like, I'm talking about people that have never, ever, don't even know what manifestation is, don't even know what, you know, meditation is. And they're like, oh, I want to start manifesting a better life for myself. Because this is everyone's journey. No one's like, there's got to be something with that too.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. I agree. Yeah, it reminds me when you were on your TikTok, you were researching a bunch of things on TikTok. So your TikTok was filled with all this stuff that you wouldn't normally listen to. So you used my TikTok.
Sorry, Mr. Al.
I cut out?
Yeah, just a little bit. What did you say? Sorry.
I remember you were looking at your TikTok and you were doing research on like whatever.
I've got 3 different TikTok. I've got my own TikTok. I have Life Force TikTok, and then when I need a break from that,
you go on mine.
Because I'm like, and it really shows your mindset.
Right. That's what I was saying. So when you go on my TikTok, because I don't use my TikTok for any research. I rarely go through TikTok and it's always the same kind of things. I love real history stuff. I love conspiracy stuff. I love, you know, anybody that's talking about some spiritual way to be better, right? That's all I look at. So when you go there, it's like, oh, here's how you manifest something different. It's like the TikTok actually reflects, okay, this is where my mindset is, right?
Algorithm. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's an algorithm, but we work the same way, and so does the universe.
Well, right? The funny thing was, you know, it was funny. We were preparing for a show, and I can't remember why, but what I do remember is that night I went to bed and I said, okay, God, help me. You know, what do I need to talk about? Like, just guide me. And the funny thing was, I was like, because my TikTok is so negative right now, it's suffocating. please, I don't want to put out fear. I don't want to give people like, hey, there's no solution. We're just going to die. There you go. Great. Goodbye.
Everything sucks.
What? Because I know it's not the case, but it's just a little bit right now. It's like, just bear with the energy right now. Just have faith in yourself, have faith in your creator. But the funny thing was, I started really talking to God, and I was like, please show me. The next day I do it again before I even open TikTok. I was like, just change the energy, please. And I'm telling you, my TikTok was flooded with positive stuff, was flooded with just like manifestation things. And I was just like, thank you, thank you, thank you. And then obviously it came back again. But again, it was like, it doesn't matter. It changed, everything. And then I know, okay, I use that for work and just to be informed. But when I need a break, I go on your TikTok, or I'll go and I have my other stuff that I, talk about, and our music and everything like that. So I feel like you can change it, you can shift it in a matter of a second. And we've seen things happen like that. It's which wolf are you going to feed? I feel like that's really important. At the same time too, I don't know if you're a bit like me, when they're coming at you or whatever, you're like, is that the best you got? Okay, keep going. Because you know what? I'm going to continue going harder and harder and harder. Even to the point that a few hours ago, I didn't even know how I was going to make it to this. And I just kept saying, no, I know I can shift it. I can change it. And it can happen. Love to hear your experiences, Mr. Rao.
You know what? You have to wait for that, because we're at 1 hour 46 minutes, and we're going to wrap it up.
Yes, Mr. Rao.
So,
is there anything else that you think that needs to be said, broken down, or anything from the situation report, anything else that's happening right now?
Oh my gosh! Honestly, go watch it yourself. UnitedNetwork.Earth. It was so these last reports. I'm telling you, they are historic. Kim would probably never say that because the nature of her humility, but in my opinion, these events are absolutely historic. They are incredible. They're worth sharing. The reason why I talk about it, we kind of hesitated there for a while because we were getting attacked for repeating Kim. I really don't give a damn, to be quite honest. The fact that you're not means you're missing something, in my opinion.
Well, I think it's actually it gives her more credibility.
Well, it does. And the more people that I don't know that she wants the message out as much. Because,
well, is she? No, but the reality is it has come to a point that you cannot stop it, because no matter what, other people are talking about this, other people are feeling this. People need to know what's going on, because no one else is talking about, well, sorry, I shouldn't say no one else, so I do apologize. There are people talking about it, but I haven't seen it. I have not heard people talk about it the way we have our conversations and coming together. But I think it gives her a little bit more credibility with that, because we've had this conversation before, but I think we'll leave that for another day, because it is coming up to time. So maybe next time we can talk about that, of how, what we think of why we actually believe in this. And you'll be surprised by the answer. But you know what? We'll leave it there. How about that?
All right. Nice cliffhanger. All right, everybody. So that being said, we are showing up here every Tuesday and Thursday night, and we are gathering people from the four corners of the earth to make the world a better place. We need all the help we can get, so we'd really appreciate if you would contribute in some kind of meaningful way and help us get some of these things back up and running. We have an incredible Life Force network that we built over several years with research centers and our own social platform and all types of things. That's, we have temporarily taken offline while we regroup and regather people together. So please find ways you can contribute to make the world a better place, and please come stand with us to do that. My name is Stefan Rao. This is the Life Force Network, and let's go change the world.